Well, good morning or good afternoon, as I understand it's late where some people are. I wanted to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We're going to cover Introduction to UI Personalization with Kentico CMS 5. My name is Tom Robbins. I've been with Kentico for a couple of months now, and I'm very happy that we're finally starting to talk a little bit more around Kentico CMS 5. If you're not familiar with me, I have a blog that we've been posting a fair amount of information up to, as well as feel free to follow either myself or Kentico CMS on Twitter. It would be much appreciated. And as always, we're trying to drive these sessions based on what we're hearing from people and things that they need. This is going to be one of the first sessions around it. We're going to be doing a few more of these as we start getting more requests and more interest from people. So we'd love to hear from you around what kinds of additional sessions or information that you would like to need, that you would need. Our agenda today is we're going to look at UI personalization fundamentals. We're going to really cover the basics around what you need to implement, some of the things you need to think about, as well as how you implement it, and then the things to think about and what you want to do with creating custom UI elements. I'd like to leave some time for questions. We're targeting these to be about 45 minutes to 50 minutes with some time for questions. So with that, we'll go ahead and hop into some of the fundamentals. As hopefully everyone realizes, in late December, Kentico released version 5. As you can see, it has tons of new features and updates across the system. This is one of the first webinars that we're really focusing on the detailed technical information around one particular feature. It's really on one of my favorites, a new feature called UI personalization. It really is a feature that impacts many different areas across Kentico CMS. Fundamentally, UI personalization is designed to increase the productivity of business users by enabling system administrators to provide a simplified and customized user interface within CMS Desk. Some typical scenarios would allow system administrators to reduce the amount of tabs, menu items, and different parts of a page that a user would see within the Kentico UI. And this really allows the end user to focus on the tasks they need to get their jobs done. Let's go ahead and start by taking a look at some of the fundamentals that we need for UI personalization. Implementing UI personalization in Kentico CMS 5 required us to do some additional refactoring of how the application is structured. So terms like modules are definitely nothing new, but they're an important term to keep in mind when you really start looking at how this feature and functionality works. By definition, modules contain UI elements. And these elements consist of things like tabs, menu items, and groups of controls, and are what we use or what we're hiding from our end users within the CMS desk. As you can see in the screenshot, this represents an example of a customized CMS Desk Tools tab. What we've done here is we've changed the module CMS Desk and applied UI personalization that hides various menu items or the UI elements from the user. Whether a UI element is shown or hidden is really based around role security. At runtime, a composite is created of all the roles a user belongs to, and this is called a UI profile. If at least one role the user belongs to makes the element visible, then it's actually displayed. So for example, you can see in the picture here, we have a user that's a member of role 1 and 2. For role 1, they have access to UI elements 1 and 2 in module 1. And for role 2, they have access to UI element 1 in Module 2. At runtime, the UI profile that's created, the composite, actually provides an interface that's going to display Module 1 containing UI element 1 and 2, and Module 2, UI element 1. The benefit, and really why this is so important to this architecture, is that UI profiles are site related. This means that a user is able to see a personalized UI when editing one site and a completely different UI when editing another site. This is really because the UI profile is dependent on roles, and roles, as you probably know, are site related. So users can be a member of any number of roles across all sites in the system. So let's take a look at an example of UI personalization using the corporate site. Let me hop out of here and hop into the corporate site. So included in the sample corporate site is a user, a special user called Andrew Jones, and he's got the username Andy. And Andy is a great demonstration of how a restricted UI permissions can look like. So let's take a look and focus on some of the areas around that. So first thing I want to do is log into CMS Desk. And I'm going to log in as administrator. And as you can see, I've got the full interface here. And just want to take a second to take a look at that. All the options within My Desk, all the options within Tools, all the options within Administration. So if I take a look at Andy, and let's take a look at Andy's role. We're going to go into Users. We'll select Andy, and we'll take a look at his roles. And as you can see, Andy's a member of CMS Basic User. And this is, within the demonstration site, a very restricted role. We use this as part of the testing, and it gives an opportunity, if you want to play with UI personalization, to already have a role created and to be able to work with that role. So let's log out of here, and let me sign out, and then we're going to go ahead and sign back into CMS Desk, and I'm going to sign in as Andy so that you can see what Andy looks like. And you'll notice kind of right off the bat, Andy's missing the administration tab, and you'll notice that the WYSIWYG editor has been reduced. There's things that we've pulled off this so that Andy can focus on the things that he needs to do, and that he doesn't actually have to worry about other things like inserting media, if we wanted to restrict that. You'll notice if I hop over to My Desk that he's got a much more restricted set of options available. So the only thing that he can do is select items waiting for approval or look at his profile. You'll notice if I go over to Tools that the only thing he has available is newsletters. So he only has to focus on the things that matter to him. And if I go over to Content, and if we go into the properties over here, you'll notice that we've got a very restricted set of options that he can do within the actual content. So this actually is a great example of thinking about how you want your end users to be able to interact with the system. What are the things that they need in order to do their daily jobs, and what are the things that they may not need, or things that we can actually reduce from them so that they don't need to focus on that. So let's take a look at how UI personalization is enabled. So we'll hop back into our presentation. Before we get into the particulars of setting up UI personalization, it's kind of important, and I want to take a second to make sure people realize how they enable it. It's enabled using Site Manager, Settings, and then Security. Within this screen, you have a couple of things that you need to select. One is you need to first ensure that, or you first need to make the decision of whether you want to enable it globally or for a particular site. This is kind of an important decision depending on how many sites you have set up. The second is obviously making sure that you have it selected for that site. The big thing here is really to kind of keep in mind that you have the option of selecting either globally or per site, and that gives you a very nice architecture in how you can figure out how you want to roll this out. So let's hop into some of the system management options that are available and actually how we can make this start to work. As we said earlier, UI personalization is applied to the CMS desk. Site managers really don't need personalization at this time based on what we've heard. It's really typically, Site Manager is typically used by administrators and developers who need the full UI. Within CMS Desk, personalization is available for the UI elements that I've listed here, and this actually creates tons of possible combinations available. So some of the common examples, the 4 main tabs in CMS Desk can be hidden. The Content tab property offers probably the most possibilities, hiding any of the main tabs in the edit mode. On the Design tab, you can customize pretty much all of the editing options. Within Web Parts Property Dialog, you can hide their tabs as well. For the Properties tab, you can do things like control the visibility of most of the UI elements, including parts of the general URLs, the template, the metadata, the menu, and security pages. For the My Desk tab, you can hide the menus and all the tabs on the My Profile page. For the Tools and Administration tab, you can hide all the menu items. One of my favorite is that all the action buttons on the WYSIWYG editor can be hidden. The other one is the Media Dialog, which is displayed when you hit the Insert Image or Insert Link in the WYSIWYG editor, allows hiding of the dialog tabs that are there. As you can see, and I've just listed a few, there are some incredible possibilities and combinations that you can come up with when you add that in with your own custom elements. So really, given our limited time today, there's lots of additional information and examples available in the documentation. And we're also going to be setting up a more advanced webinar in the next couple of weeks where we're going to dive into kind of creating your own custom elements for developers. So given our scope today, let's take a look at how we can make some of these things happen. Fundamentally, there are 2 key menu items that are used when working with UI personalization. The module screen is used to define the available UI elements, and the UI personalization screen is used to set the permission on those elements. So let's actually take a quick look at those so that you kind of understand. Those are really kind of 2 of the big things that you want to kind of keep in mind. Let me sign out of here. Let me go into CMS Site Manager as administrator. Let's take a look at, let's start by looking at the modules option. And as you can see, the modules option lists all the modules that are available. Let's go ahead and drill into the module content. And as you see, we have a new tab called User Interface. And User Interface allows us to do things like select new elements. You can actually see that we've got all the menu options that are listed here. we can actually click on any of these and we can start defining the roles that might be available. As you can see, as I kind of click through these, you have kind of the capability of being able to select as well as the sub-menus and kind of drill all the way down. If we go back to modules, and we're going to go over to our second page here, and let's take a look at the WYSIWYG editor. And you'll notice that if I go into the screen, I have the option to look at kind of all of the options. I can create a new element. If I wanted to move things up and down, I have that capability. While you could delete elements, I'm not sure I would actually recommend that, as well as setting roles around different areas that I may want to go ahead and set. So if we go back to modules, and as you remember earlier, I showed you Andy actually didn't have the CMS Desk Administration tab. So if I go into, if I were to go into things like the Administration tab and select roles, you'll notice that CMS Basic User doesn't have this selected. So this is actually an example of how you can restrict a tab from somebody. You want to identify or create the role, and then within the tab, CMS Desk module, go ahead and then either select or deselect the actual role to make sure that they either have it or they don't. Let's now hop over to the user personalization option, which is the second. As you can see, these screens are actually very different, but you always want to kind of keep in mind that the UI personalization is about setting permissions for roles. Within the module screen, it's where we're going to identify elements that we want to expose. So custom elements are added in the module screen. So if I wanted to, we could take a look at our CMS Basic users that we have here. So as we said earlier, Andy, as an example, what does he have available? So for module, we know that he doesn't have an administration tab, so we've deselected that within the modules. Within CMS Desk, he's only got available things like content, My Desk, and tools. Within content, he's only got page, form, and properties. And within the media dialog, he's got all of the available portions. Within My Desk, he's only got waiting for approval in My Profile. And within tools, he's only got newsletter available. So the CMS Basic User really is a very restricted set of permissions and really enables us to control what that end user sees. So let's take a step back and look at adding our own modules or creating our own custom elements. As we saw a couple of minutes ago, we can add custom UI elements using the Site Manager Development Module screen. Within the screen, we then go ahead and select the new UI element options, and we need to fill in or complete the following information. Things like display name is where we want to add the name of the element displayed in the administration interface, and this can be entered as either plain text or a localizable string. And you want to use the format $mystringname format. And this allows you to go ahead and take advantage of localization that you may be using. The other is code name, and this is pretty typical across Kentico. It's just a unique module name of the elements used by the website. The big one is the element is custom. So when this isn't selected, the Kentico UI considers this to be a native part. So for any things that you're adding, you always want to make sure that you set the value for your own custom UI elements. And then the other is caption, which is the caption of the UI element, which is displayed in the rendered UI. And this can, once again, either be entered as plain text or as a localizable string using the $ string name format. Target URL is really the URL of the web page where the content for the UI is located. And this can be an absolute, so for example, google.http://www.google.com, or relative using the ~CMS modules, content, whatever the rest of that path is. And then icon path. And icon path is really only for menu items. And it's designed to set the icon that's displayed next to the element caption. So like the target URL, you can use the full relative path beginning with the tilde. So, tilde app path or app_themes, or the short path that will lead directly under the images folder. So there isn't a ton of complexity in how you can add your own UI elements, but it is important to understand a couple of key things. One is making sure that you can support localization, and then making sure that you understand the pathing that you're going to bring in. So as our final example, let's go ahead and create a simple example of adding a new tab into CMS Desk. So I'm going to hop back into Site Manager. We're going to go to Development and then Modules. I'm going to add the new tab into CMS Desk. We're going to switch into the user interface, and I'm going to select New Element. And just so that we can kind of keep it simple, I'll just add a Google tab, and we'll keep the element as custom. And we'll make the caption go to Google. And we'll set our target path to be google.com. We're going to leave the icon path blank because this isn't necessary. Then we're going to select OK. And now when that's done, let's go ahead and switch into CMS Desk. And assuming, there we go, you'll notice that the menu is rendered automatically. And this has to do with how things are rendered within the Kentico CMS UI. Things like the tabs are all rendered dynamically, so kind of the minute you deploy it, it becomes available to people. So I've essentially added in the new tab. And if I go ahead and click on it, you'll notice that it brings me into the Google interface. So while this wasn't an extensive example, it did provide some of the basics of UI personalization. I see that we don't actually have any questions, so I want to offer an opportunity for people to ask any questions that they may have. You guys have been very quiet. Feel free to send those in at any time. As you can imagine, we really only touched on the basics. And as I said earlier, I want to schedule a more advanced webinar in the next couple of weeks so that we can cover some of the more advanced topics. Until then, we have tons of other opportunities as we're actually just starting to ramp a lot of our information up and a lot of the discussion up. And we'd certainly like to hear from folks. So there's a ton of upcoming activities that I just want to spend a few minutes on. February 9th, we have a webinar on generating buzz leads and sales. February 18th, we have Martin, our CTO, who's going to be presenting some of the new features in 5.0, and that's more more of a lap around kind of thing where we're going to cover a lot of different features so that you can see on that first slide the list that was available. Then we're going to have a couple of other webinars with technical learning happening again March 16th, where we're going to go into widgets and provide a very similar session to this around widgets for people to start understanding. We're going to do the introduction and then the more advanced. The other two big things I want to call out are that we're going to be part of the Visual Studio launch. So Kentico is one of the sponsoring partners for the Visual Studio 2010 launch. So we're definitely going to be there, and we're going to have some. We're going to have a release coming in that's going to make sure that we fully support Visual Studio 2010. I've actually been using it and haven't seen any issues with it. And then last, we're going to be part of the Internet World 2010 in the UK. Please don't forget, we've just started the Kentico. We've just started the Kentico developer newsletter, so you can sign up for that on DevNet and on the right-hand side of the page. That's kind of a monthly newsletter of all the different things that we have going on with Kentico. We're featuring some community content. If you have some great community content, please feel free to send that. So I've got looks like two questions that we'll try to, two or three. Let's see. Let's see. So the one question, can you customize the properties node under CMS Desk? I believe you can. So if we were to go back into Site Manager, Development, Modules, CMS Desk, User Interface, I actually have to go look and see. What I'll do is I'll take a look and I'll see if I can find that answer. Can Kentico run on VMware servers is the question. And the answer is absolutely. Can you use wildcard certificates on the admin site of the normal site? Sorry, I'm not sure I understand that question, but I would love to get more information on it. So feel free to email me. I'm not quite sure I understand what that question is looking for. All right, well, looks like we are getting towards the end. I'll stay on for a few more minutes as people continue to ask questions, and we'll do my best to answer them. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this session. It looks like we went through it fairly quickly, which is really our goal, to kind of get the information out as quick as we can. As always, my email is thomasr@kentico.com. Please take a look at my blog. If you have any additional questions, I would be very happy to answer them. And with that, I am going to go ahead and end this webinar, and will continue to be available if people have questions.